May 23, 1973, a lab technician in Maryland opened a 9-foot enclosure and found the last mouse dead. No wounds, no disease, nothing a pathologist could point to. The food hoppers were still full, the water bottles untouched. The paradise was intact. Every single thing John Calhoun had promised these mice, he had delivered, and every single one of them was gone. Calhoun had spent 20 years asking a question that nobody in mainstream science took seriously. Not because it was stupid, because it was uncomfortable. What does a society do to itself when all its problems are solved? He ran 24 experiments before Universe 25. Forests, barns, laboratory rooms, rats, mice, different configurations, different scales. He kept changing the variables, trying to find the flaw in his own methodology, trying to get a different result. He never did. The pattern was identical every time. Explosion, distortion, collapse. So in 1968, he built the final version. Clean, federal funding, airtight controls, a 9-foot square habitat with walk-up apartments stacked along every wall, mesh tunnels connecting each level, food hoppers engineered to never empty, water bottles designed to never run dry, temperature locked, cleaning schedule maintained by hand. He selected 8 mice personally, 4 males, 4 females, the healthiest specimens from the National Institutes of Health breeding colony. He placed them inside. He shut the lid, and he waited. The first 104 days were unremarkable. The founders explored the enclosure, mapped the tunnels, established sleeping arrangements, normal mouse behavior, nothing to document except geography. Then the first litters arrived. Population doubled every 55 days. 8 became 20. 20 became 80. By day 315, more than 600 mice were moving through the enclosure, climbing the ramps, sleeping in stacked piles, competing for nesting positions near the tops of the apartments. From a distance, it looked like success. Calhoun wasn't watching from a distance. In a wild mouse colony, overcrowding triggers emigration. The young males who can't establish territory leave. They push outward, find new ground, build something elsewhere. The tension resolves itself through geography. Universe 25 had no elsewhere. The young males with no territory and no role, nowhere to go and nothing to defend, drifted toward the center of the enclosure and stopped moving. Calhoun stood above the pen and watched them for hours. They were well-fed, physically healthy, completely unoccupied. When other mice attacked them, they didn't fight back. They absorbed the damage, stood up, walked a few feet, lay down again. The attack hadn't registered as something worth responding to. At the opposite extreme, a separate group emerged, simultaneously. Males who had abandoned every social protocol the species ran on. They moved faster than any other mice. They forced entry into occupied nests. They ignored courtship rituals entirely. They kept pushing, even when dominant males responded with violence. Their behavior had no apparent logic. They weren't competing for anything specific. They were just running. Between these two groups, the colony's functional center was quietly hollowing out. The mothers were the clearest signal that something had broken past the point of recovery. The males who had originally established nesting territories grew exhausted from constant defense and gradually stopped showing up. The females were left to protect the nest, nurse the young, and fight off intruders, simultaneously, alone, indefinitely. They couldn't sustain it. Pups began appearing in random locations across the enclosure, abandoned mid-nest. Some mothers stopped recognizing their own young. Others stopped distinguishing between their offspring and strangers. In the worst sections of the colony, fewer than 1 in 20 newborn mice survived to weaning. Calhoun documented it without editorializing in his notes. The social fabric was gone. The bodies were still metabolizing. The structure that had made them a colony, the set of roles and relationships and learned behaviors that turned individual mice into a functioning society, had already died. The physical deaths would follow. They always did. But the actual extinction had already happened. The pups that survived did so without models. They had no fathers who defended territory, no mothers who successfully raised litters, no older males who had won fights or established hierarchies. They grew up inside a world that had already stopped functioning and had no memory of when it hadn't. When they reached adulthood, their behavior was unlike anything in Calhoun's 2 decades of observation. They didn't fight. They didn't court females. They didn't attempt to claim space or build nests or participate in any social structure at all. They ate. They slept. They groomed themselves with meticulous, repetitive care. Their fur was immaculate. Not a single scar, because they had never once engaged with another mouse in any meaningful way. Calhoun believed it did. He thought we were capable of something the mice weren't. The experiment doesn't tell us if he was right. That part isn't in the data. If questions like this one keep you up at night, you're in the right place. Subscribe.